Chapter 17. Sold. Glaric Beresford was exactly where Agnart had told the Duke he would be. In fact, he was sitting on a stool taking his ease outside the largest and most centrally located of all the tents in the circus. It was clear that Glaric had seen the Duke and his party approach. It was also obvious to the circus owner's eyes that there were two women in the group, yet Glaric kept his seat and scowled at them. "Glaric Beresford?" the Duke asked. "Aye," Glaric replied. "You own this circus?" The Duke pressed. "I do, along with my brother and sister. What of it?" The Duke wasted no time. He unhooked a money pouch from his belt and placed it in Glaric's hand and said, "There, 100 crore." Glaric looked at the pouch in his hand for a moment. There was a puzzled expression on his face. "Thank you, shipmate, but might I ask what this is for?" "I'm buying the Harpy from you," the Duke said simply. Glaric laughed. Then somewhat tersely he commented, "Not for a mere 100, you old skipper." The Duke nodded. He had expected this. He unhooked the other pouch from his belt. "That's it, 200. "She's my star attraction," Glaric grumbled. "If I sailed for a year and a day, I'd never find another monster that can shoot as well as she does." The Duke sighed. He looked at Sir Grant. "Did you bring any money?" "I have a handful of our crore. The whole amount might be worth as much as a crore," Sir Grant replied. Glaric laughed. 201? Don't even bother." "And—" Sir Grant was hesitant. "And?" the Duke pressed. Sir Grant handed over a silver coin. "It's my good luck charm." "You carry a silver coin as a good luck charm?" the Duke said, amazed. "I'll get you a replacement when we return to the castle." "Thank you, your grace," Sir Grant replied. The Duke took the silver coin and handed it to Glaric. "Right, that's 400, and that's my last offer." "Then your last offer isn't enough. Your sails might be up, but there's no wind," Glaric replied indignantly. "Do you have any idea who I am?" the Duke intoned. "Indeed, shipmate," Glaric replied with a smirk. "You're the man that thinks he can buy a warship for the price of a canoe. I am the man that signs the license that allows you to erect your freak show in this, my dukedom." "You're the Duke?" Glaric said. He didn't seem all that surprised. He was absently massaging the money pouches as he spoke. "I am," the Duke replied. Glaric climbed slowly to his feet and bowed low. "So then," the Duke pointedly asked. "Heh," Glaric commented tersely. "If you think you can keel-haul me into selling one of my exhibits just because you happen to own the place, then think again. There's no skin off my nose whether we do or do not sail to Dunmoth in the future. There are many other harbours in the kingdom that would be only too happy for me to drop anchor there a little longer. I don't need the plunder I get from Lamington. I sail here for the sake of your people rather than mine. It is you who will suffer if I'm not allowed to bring my crew here, and it is you they shall blame if word ever got out as to why I was never coming back." "And word would get out, I presume?" the Duke commented. He sighed deeply. "Probably," Glaric agreed. 600 then, the Duke offered. "I'll send the rest of the money to you once I get back to the castle." "You're beginning to get closer. You are slowly sailing into the realms of a reasonable offer. You're still a long way off from the shores of success, though," Glaric commented. "Double it. Make it 12, and she's yours." "That's a lot of money," the Duke said. "Not my problem, shipmate," Glaric said. "We'll be here for another 2 weeks. After that we set sail for Duke Gnespa's province on the eastern wind. We'll be moored there for about a month. Then, once we weigh anchor and leave Gnespa's land, well, let's just say if you haven't paid the rest by then, I'll consider the deal off, and you'll have to renegotiate it." "You'd want more if that happened, no doubt." "Absolutely," Glaric replied. "Now you're learning, shipmate. I'll keep this 400 as a down payment. Once you ship 800 more to me, she's yours, though I couldn't begin to imagine why you'd want her in one of your berths." "I have my reasons," the Duke commented. "I'm sure you do," Glaric replied keenly. "Very well," the Duke said. "I'll take the Harpy with me, then I'll send the remainder of the money by fast dispatch once I get home." "Oh no," Glaric insisted. "I don't think I can agree to such a thing. That's way off over the horizon, that is." "What's the problem?" the Duke asked. "You know where I live. I can't exactly rip you off." "Oh, you could," Glaric replied. I can just see you claiming that you sent a man with the money, but for some reason the money never reached me. No, once the money is in my hands, then you can take her with you." The Duke sighed. "Look, I'm a very busy man. I don't have time to go gallivanting around the country to get you your cash. You'll understand that transporting a creature such as a harpy isn't a job I can trust to just one of my soldiers." "She stays on board my ship until I have the plunder," Glaric insisted. The Duke shook his head slowly. He couldn't help noticing that Glaric was still absently fondling the money pouches. Agnart had been right about Glaric's temperament. Perhaps he could use that to his advantage and attack the thing the circus owners seemed to love the most. "Fine. Well then, I guess the deal was off. We just couldn't come to an arrangement." "Aye," Glaric responded. "I guess not." "It will make Reyes sad," Jenni commented. "So I'll take back my 400 crore and leave you to the running of your circus," the Duke insisted. "Sorry, shipmate, deposits are non-returnable," Glaric told him. "Sir Grant," the Duke stated, "relieve this man of my money." Sir Grant smiled wickedly. He unsheathed his blade and advanced menacingly on the boss of the circus. He seemed to be enjoying the role the Duke had just given him, perhaps a little too much. "I'll take those pouches and that silver coin." Glaric said. "What piracy is this?" The circus owner took a step back, his foot catching one of the guide ropes of his tent. He stood there, frozen for a moment, and then said, Okay, you talked me into it. Take her with you." "Reyes will be overjoyed," Jenni said happily. Reyes was standing up now, his arm around his mother and his head resting lightly against her side. He heard the approach of his father, sister, and the other two long before his mother did. "Did he think he was a sailor?" Jenni asked her father as they returned to the Harpy enclosure. "I think he wanted to be," the Duke replied with a laugh in his voice, "though I suppose he might have once worked the Arlist to First Town Ferry." Once back at the enclosure, the Duke all but whispered, "Okay, Harpy, get your things together. You're coming with us." Agnart looked around in surprise and asked incredulously, "You got an agreement? You actually got that double-talking bastard to accept?" "Keep your voice down," the Duke insisted. With no one to stop them, a large crowd had again gathered about the enclosure, and the Duke would rather none of them know anything about the deal. Agnart took the hint. She placed her bow on one of the bales of straw, and approached the fence, addressing her audience. "Okay, folks, the show's over for the day." The crowd departed reluctantly. There were mutters of complaint from some of the crowd, and a few even looked as if they were heading towards the centre aisle, perhaps to complain officially that the Harpy was refusing to perform. "It was an expensive agreement," Jenni commented. "I'll bet," Agnart said, amazed. "You probably paid 3 times what I'm worth." "Probably," the Duke agreed. "Now, how do we get you out of this enclosure?" Agnart climbed easily over the fence. "It's only there to demark my boundaries." "And to make the audience think they're safe," Jenni suggested. "Well, possibly," Agnart agreed. "Right," the Duke commented. "We should go. I want to be home before it starts getting dark, and I'm sure you would like to leave this place as soon as you can." "I would," Agnart replied. It seemed to be slowly sinking into Reyes' mind that Agnart was actually coming with them. His heart began to beat quickly as he felt his emotions getting the better of him. He threw his arms around his father, hugging him tightly. "Thank you, Dad." "Think nothing of it, son," the Duke replied, patting Reyes gently on the back. "Just don't make me regret my decision." Then turning his head towards the Harpy, he continued, "Nor you, Agnart." "I won't," Agnart agreed. "And thanks for finally calling me by my given name. I think you're the first human to ever do so." "Hey," Reyes protested. "I've been using your name all day." "So you have," Agnart replied with a gentle smile. "Now I need to work out how to get you home. There are more than a handful of soldiers waiting to escort us home just outside the circus, and I'd rather as few people know about you as possible." "That'll be awkward if you're going to give me the run of the place," Agnart commented. "That I can easily fix once we get there," the Duke explained. "Getting there will be a pain." He turned to Sir Grant. "The only thing I can think of is for you to send the bodyguards home ahead of us." "I don't like the idea of that," the knight replied. "You should have some protection for the return trip. The roads aren't safe at the moment. You saw those abandoned carts on the way here. Even if there was no danger, I'm not sure I'd be happy about you or any member of your family travelling without a bodyguard." The Duke considered for a moment and then said, "Very well, I'll compromise. Find the 5 most trustworthy men to escort us home and send the rest on ahead. You know the sort I mean. Select only those who have served with me for so long that their loyalty cannot possibly be in doubt. Men like Grimm, who was with us on the day we rescued that other Harpy." "Other Harpy?" Reyes asked. "What other Harpy?" "Careful, father," Jenni warned. Sir Grant nodded. "Grimm is with us. I'd also suggest Chick, Raymond, Losjean, and Borton. They were all present at the incident you mentioned." "Borton?" the Duke asked. "No relation to the King, or to Duke Borton," Sir Grant responded. "At least, no immediate relation." The Duke nodded carefully. "Very well, do it." Sir Grant saluted the Duke, and then, with Anita walking beside him like she was his equal, turned and headed towards the exit of the circus compound. "What Harpy?" Reyes pressed urgently. "Tell me!" Jenni did her best to explain. "Father once found a baby Harpy lost in the woods. We brought him home." The Duke coughed. I mean we brought her home," Jenni corrected herself quickly. And we looked after her for a while, nursing her back to health." Agnart started to giggle. "I wish I'd met this baby," Reyes told her. "Why was I never told about this? Why haven't I seen her about the castle?" "It wasn't thought important enough," Jenni replied. "Not important enough?" Reyes stood up. "You know how I feel about harpies. Why would you think I wouldn't want to know?" "Well, you were very young at the time," Jenni said. "Your infatuation with harpies hadn't manifested back then." "Many whatted?" Reyes said. "So what happened to the baby?" Jenni hesitated to answer. Agnart had started laughing. "We should go," the Duke commented, saving his daughter. "If she's with us," Reyes offered happily. "Gladly." Then, as they headed out of the circus, Agnart asked, "Can I get rid of this skirt thing? I've had it since I was first captured, and to be honest, it's beginning to stink a bit." "That's a good idea," Reyes agreed eagerly. "I do think you'd look better without it." "I'm sure you do," Jenni commented to Reyes, restraining a giggle. "I'd rather you wore it," the Duke said. "I have children to think of. However, once we get back to the castle, I expect you'll be able to get rid of it. We'll find you something else." "Thank you," Agnart said graciously. As soon as they were close to the exit of the circus, the Duke said to Jenni, "Would you go and check to see if Sir Grant has sent the soldiers home? We don't want any misunderstandings." "Will do, father," Jenni replied. It wasn't much longer than a couple of minutes until Jenni beckoned to them, indicating it was safe. Then she returned to them. "Sir Grant is there with Anita and the 5 soldiers you specifically named. According to Sir Grant, the rest of the bodyguards are apparently cutting through the city on their way home. I suggest we move slowly and do likewise." The Duke nodded. "That's okay. It'll take us a little time to fetch Reyes' pony. I expect they'll have a good lead on us by then." Reyes said hesitantly. I sold my pony to get into the circus." The Duke sighed. He closed his eyes and said, "No matter. I'm sure we can find room for you in the coach." "You brought the coach?" Reyes repeated happily. "Of course," the Duchess remarked. "You didn't think I'd travel by horse when we have a coach, did you?" "That's another thing," Jenni offered. "Sir Grant sent your coach driver, Moffin, home with the bodyguards. Sir Grant will be driving the coach instead. He hopes that's all right. He wasn't sure how much you trusted Moffin." The Duke nodded. "Probably a good move. Agnart, I'll also want you travelling in the coach with the rest of us. It'll be easier to smuggle you back into the castle unseen, especially if we pull the curtains. Then all we have to do is work out how to get you into the castle residency without anyone noticing." "Think we can trust that boss to keep his mouth shut?" Reyes asked. "Ha!" Agnart snorted. Sir Grant, acting as both driver and doorman, opened the door to the coach and bowed as Breadine climbed aboard. "He'd better stay quiet," the Duke replied. The Duke then climbed aboard the coach himself, taking the seat next to his wife and facing towards the front, for his own sake. Jenni, Reyes, and Agnart then climbed aboard the coach in that order, and took seats on the bench opposite. Sir Grant gallantly kept the door open for all 3 to climb aboard, but he made a point of not bowing towards Agnart.